I'm going to talk about something today very personal to me in this video. I have been the victim of age discrimination in jobs going back to the time I was in my late 30s and early 40s. Therefore, I aged out of the workforce when it came to the private sector at somewhere around earlier to mid 40s. In this video, I'm going to go into an in-depth analysis of this issue. You may even be a victim of it yourself. There are a lot of people in this country that are the victim of age discrimination in jobs. That's what I'm going to talk about now. So I'm going to go through my outline, go through a lot of the major issues that connect to this highly problematic economic issue in this nation. So here we go. A lot of the reason I've been self-employed through most of my adult life is because of age discrimination. I went into self-employment heavily after I lost an election in 2010 for the state house. I've actually talked a lot about age discrimination in my previous videos further back. I believe a lot of it was last year. I think they want to make the mandatory retirement age in this country about mid to late 40s. It's in the works with corporations. Don't be naive. This is all a setup about money. I know a lot of people in my career that were victims of this. Many people have to take buyouts or they're forced to retire, which is a mess. It used to affect, in my opinion, about 10 to 20% of the workforce back in, say, the 80s and 90s, according to my own views and my own research. Now I think it's at least close to about 40% of the entire market or labor force, according to my research, off and on for many years. I think it's twice as high now. The lawsuits are going way up, but only about 1% of people win these kinds of lawsuits. Depending on where you live, it might be closer to 10%. If your federal district courts are more liberal in this country, it might even be 10 to 20%, but in general it's limited. Usually when people win for ageism, they win on class actions, where lawyers usually make almost all the money and the individual plaintiffs only obtain a relatively small amount of cash from these suits. Keep that in mind. They only tend to win in class actions, which is a lot different than an individual massive payout. One of the big issues with this is tough to prove. What they do is they never interview you or they never call you back. So herein lies the problem. They essentially ghost you. That's one of the big issues with this. It's almost impossible to prove because of the laws. I think what they ought to do, here's a solution. Make it easier to sue, thus change the federal and the state laws on this. The federal law starts at 40. I started facing this problem in my late 30s. The number should be about 38 as an age in my view, maybe even as low as 36. I think the company should be forced to buy people out under new federal laws. I also talked about this in previous videos, I believe last year. That is another option. For example, if you had new laws, if you had 5 more years in the workforce up to 62 when usually people can start collecting Social Security, if you made about $50,000 a year as an example, you would get about $250,000 in a buyout on one check under new laws. This is a theory. It would be up to Congress or the state houses to do this. Ageism or age discrimination can wreck your life financially. Many are forced into bankruptcy. I knew tons of people who were victims of it. It's very common from what I've seen in my life, in mall retail, malls, general retail jobs in the lower end of the economy, banks, very large law firms, some forms of other types of general retail, and very large corporations engage in it because they simply know they can get away with it due to a high-paid legal staff. Now, no one is really paying benefits anymore, or very few companies are doing this. It's all about money, money, money. It's about wages and salaries. As people get older, they tend to make a lot more money, and corporations don't want to pay beyond a certain income level for a certain job at a certain age. It's greed. Call Congress and your state reps on this. In the description, I'm going to have the number for the congressional switchboard again. We need reform. Call your elected reps in the state house and in Congress. We need better laws. We need change. They don't want to pay what people are worth to a corporation. They only want to pay what the CEO is supposedly worth under their highly subjective, biased, way out beliefs. Keep in mind, corporate greed is a big problem in this nation and ties back into this issue. 80% of rich people have all inherited their money in this nation. We need better laws on ageism, we need better tax laws, and corporations should be better regulated in this area. We need massive reform, and people's anger should be directed at the CEOs for doing this. That's what is actually happening. This may actually be affecting now about half of the entire workforce from what I've seen out there. It can happen as early as late 30s, and in the tech industry, it can happen as early 30s. We need change. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. Please make a note. One of my videos next week on Wednesday is going to be on comparing the Democratic Party in the US to Canadian liberal parties in Canada, such as the Canadian Liberals and the NDP, or the New Democratic Party. I think the Democratic Party needs massive change. Thanks a lot for your time. It's free to subscribe.